Okay, everyone, welcome to GuildIt, and thank you for being here on this cold but bright day. We're looking forward to kicking off our 2023 series, and we got a great presenter to kick it off with, a nationally known presenter. So let me tell you, though, a little bit about GuildIt and what you're in for this next hour. First, we are a nonprofit within Kansas City. We broadcast live, though, and stream live throughout the nation, the world. Our team consists of our videographer, Sam, who's here today, and I, Susanna Brune. And then we definitely want to thank Weinberg for this beautiful gallery space we're in today, and definitely thank our wonderful foundations and individual donors and companies whom help make GuildIt possible. A little bit about the format. So our art entrepreneur will present for 10 to 15 minutes, a couple of great documentary trailers you'll see today about his recent works. And then we'll do a 40-minute discussion. We'll take questions online as well as from the audience and kind of brainstorm on how not only growing his business, but also the business of the arts of Kansas City and nationally as well. All right, let me tell you a little bit about our presenter today. All right, filmmaker Jon Todd Brick has recently, I'm sorry, I'm standing in front of the projector. Okay, filmmaker Jon Todd Brick recently directed and edited the feature documentary Class of COVID-19. The film won numerous awards at film festivals in Kansas City and Nashville, plus a Black International and Remi International Film Festival Awards. In 2018, Jon directed, produced, and edited the award-winning feature documentary film Uncommon Allies. That film is currently on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Roku TV, and Vudu. So without further ado, we welcome Jon. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in on a cold winter day, and thanks for GuildIt having me down here. It's important to support local artists in a platform like this, and I'm just appreciative that you guys came out. So I'm Jon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, and then I'm going to jump into my two recent feature documentary projects. So I was born and raised in Kansas City, and after I finished school at Wisconsin, I moved out to California, and I worked out there for 13 years in both San Francisco and LA. I worked for a number of different companies. Most notably was probably Yahoo News, where I helped start the original content group for original series, so webisode type series back in 2003 to 2005. So we were the #1 news site in the world, and I was producing shows about subcultures, 60-minute style stuff, travel shows, and a number of other things. We even did a portrait of the President of the United States before I left. But while I was doing that, I was shooting, editing, producing, and directing. I was working about 5 people's jobs. And I kind of felt like I wanted to move on and make documentaries on my own and become an independent producer. And I always wanted to make documentaries at home in Kansas City, so I decided to start doing that here. So shortly after I moved back to Kansas City, I was doing freelance work and branding content work and whatnot. And I got a call from a company in Los Angeles about a film called Beyond Laughters and Tears, which was the director of that film is a 3-time Oscar award-winning winner. He's up for 4 this year. And I was lucky enough to work with him in Missouri and Arkansas traveling around. And he mentored me and gave me kind of, in a certain way, put me in my place about what I need to do to make feature documentaries. If I want to make a career out of this, this is what you need to do. And so I listened to him, and everything he told me worked. So shortly, about 2 years after I worked with him on Beyond Laughters and Tears, I created this documentary film. This is Uncommon Allies. It's a Kansas City story. The story is about Rosalind Temple. I don't know if you guys know her here in the Kansas City community, but she goes to homicide scenes. She lost her son to murder, so she goes to homicide scenes to bridge the gap between the community and the police department. So she's there as a person at the police line to comfort families when their family member is murdered. So I worked with the Kansas City Police Department. And the film, this is my first feature documentary, which I directed, edited, and produced, because I wanted to learn all facets of it. And the film, We were at a couple local film festivals here. We won the jury award at the Kansas Film Fest. And we were at the Newport Film Fest, which is a really, really good festival, probably top 25 maybe. So I'm going to show you a trailer from that, and then I'm going to talk about how I got the film up and running.
No mother should have to bury her child.
Today has been a very violent day here in Kansas City. We need your help, Kansas City. If anyone knows anything that happened in any of these cases today, we urge you, we plead with you today to call us.
Someone knows who killed my son, and I need answers. Who would take a 26-year-old life and just leave them in their own apartment and lock them in there like they're animals?
My family is not going to get no closure. And so whoever killed my brother is behind bars.
There's 80 dead black folks in the city, and I don't have a single protest, a single national media coverage from anyone.
We got to love on each other. It's not the police killing us. It is us doing it.
If we are to believe that police departments are as bad as the media or segments of the community would lead us to believe, the streets would be running red with blood. There are more good things happening with police departments and police officers every day that no one ever reports about.
When I think about urban Kansas City, it's in a state of chronic and unrelenting stress and trauma.
It's like a slow and gradual breakdown in the fabric of society. I could not even begin to tell you what the problem is or how to fix it.
I don't want no other mother to go through what I've been through. I had to be a mother to take a stand. So now with Kansas City Mothers in Short, I'm called to homicide scenes. I'm the first responder with the homicide detectives. I'm there to bridge that gap with the community and the police department.
Rosalind has taken on a huge undertaking. She's literally taken this city on her shoulders to help victim families navigate this process.
It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. It's okay.
Everybody looks at her like, kind of like a mother. She remembers everything that we do, everything we say. I don't know how she does it.
See, the police department always kind of joke around a little bit and tell me, all I need is a light. So I guess, remember when they go light on top and just go on through the lights and turn the siren on.
This is a mother who has been there. Not only has she been there for her own, she's been there for countless others who have the same problem. That's the type of connectivity that we have to have in this city if we're going to end the violence.
We're going to take Kansas City back. We're going to support our police department. They can't do it by themselves. They cannot do it by themselves, y'all.
The community has to have their Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy moment where you say, enough is enough, and you fight for what you believe.
Everybody has something new to believe. Everybody not going to be wise on something, but you be whoever you're supposed to be. And help me fight this fight.
Thank you. So that's the teaser trailer for Uncommon Allies. So the way I got Uncommon Allies started, and again, I had 2 Oscar award-winning filmmakers kind of mentor me through this process, because if you have a really good story to tell, there are ways, financially to get the support for that, and then obviously distribution to tell. But it's very difficult to get documentaries made. But what I was able to do, which is a model for a lot of independent feature documentary filmmakers, is once you have your story and your treatment and all the essentials you need to get a film started, I get a fiscal sponsorship from the International Documentary Association, and what the International Documentary Association does is basically represent your film project as a 501c3 nonprofit, meaning they handle all the back-end book work and financial stuff. So if foundations want to donate you money, if independent financiers want to donate you money, it's all tax deductible. So it's a streamlined process. So they basically just get you up and running so you can get the funding and you can get paid to go into production, and they support you throughout the film. So it's a wonderful thing. So after I got the fiscal sponsorship, I was fortunate enough to be connected to some people at UMKC, ArtsKC, and the Kauffman Foundation. And they gave us grants that really helped me get the film done. And they also helped with impact screening grants for me to help to get Uncommon Allies out into the community. So with that set up, that's a good way to raise money and get things started for the film. And then again, I also had a little bit of independent financing from people. So when they donate through the IDA, it's a write-off on their taxes. And I had some fundraisers. I had some screening fundraisers, one right next door, a few of those, and that helped raise money as well. So once I got the film up and running, I we talked about film festivals. So film festivals is the best way really to create some credentials and win awards for yourself, to get some credibility without in the film community. Obviously, the better the film festivals you get in, the more chances you have for distribution. So when I was at Film Festival in London, I was connected to someone from WAG Entertainment, and WAG Entertainment represents Uncommon Allies globally. They have the entertainment rights worldwide to distribute it. And I was very fortunate to be connected with them on that trip. So what WAG Entertainment has done is they've basically essentially got me out on the streaming platforms. The film's on Amazon Prime, Roku, Apple Plus, Tubi, and we've done some one-off deals for some cable television things, and so anything kind of goes through her. And she also handles the education distribution, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. So in addition to the entertainment side of the streaming platform, what I really enjoy and what I really think is most impactful and helps our community and communities around are the impact screenings I did for Uncommon Allies. So I've probably done about 20 impact screenings. I just want to point out this recent one that I did. I was contacted by the mayor of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where they have a very high crime rate, and he loved the model of how Rosalind works with the police department and what they're doing for the community. So they contacted me for a Juneteenth celebration, a month-long thing they were having, to license Uncommon Allies for a month. And what they were doing is they were doing screenings at churches around the community, and they had members of the police department, they had Rosalind, and another member of the KCPD go down along with the mayor's office to talk about the issues around gun violence and whatnot. So it was a great opportunity not only for the film exposure, but to really raise awareness about the issues that communities are having. So in addition to impact screenings, there's also education screenings that education distributors do. So you can see here in small words is any school or anybody that wants to show the film for education purposes can license it through Films Media Group and a couple other organizations that have it up there. So that's essentially what the sales agent helped me get up and running, which leads me to the current project, which is called Class of COVID-19, that was filmed from the beginning of the pandemic, literally lockdown, all the way through vaccination. Class of COVID-19 is having some very good success so far. So I will go ahead and show you that, and we'll talk about where that's going.
If you went through COVID and you're not a different person than you were at the beginning of COVID, something's wrong.
My house didn't have Wi-Fi at the beginning of the school year.
I happened to look out the window and said, why do we have a kid sitting out on the curb?
It's impossible to be an alert citizen in America today and not understand that the pandemic has had an unequal impact.
But for some reason, we're fixated on getting back to normal.
With COVID, I was running 104 fevers for 30 days. I taught from the hospital.
Kids did struggle. I don't know how they got through it.
I just have some days where I'm just like, man, I really just don't want to move out of bed.
Contemplation by yourself for such a long period of time can really make you start thinking critically about yourself.
The main focus of the world being coronavirus to Black lives is it was at a time when we literally thought it couldn't get any worse at all. And then it did.
When the transition between the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement was happening, for me, I didn't even realize it. Oh yeah, there's still a pandemic, but like I gotta fight for what I really meant.
I was told I'm not Black enough. I was told I'm too Black. It was never up to me to decide what I wanted to be. Not anymore.
These kids just sailed through this pandemic like it was nothing.
Sometimes we just have hard days or hard years or hard lives. And it's okay to admit that you need help.
You have to be kind to each other no matter what you look like.
The world would be a better place with just a little more empathy.
The younger generation, we know how to navigate the world as it's moving.
I think our whole generation became more socially conscious, and we are the future.
Everybody is just really looking into themselves and realizing how they can, as a person, be better.
All right, so thank you. So Class of COVID-19 has been a part of 6 festivals in 2022. We won some pretty great awards. We won the International Black Film Festival, Best Long Documentary Film at the International Black Film Festival in Nashville, which is a pretty well-respected film festival. We won the Audience Choice at Kansas City International Film Festival for documentary, and we won a Remi Award at WorldFest, Houston International Film Festival. So moving forward with this project, we are still going to do some festivals this year, which again will help us get the film out there. But we're really excited because we're just closing some distribution things for the film on the education side with a really great partner. And that's really going to help this film get into not just hundreds, but potentially thousands of classrooms around the world. And we've had a lot of interest so far without even using this arm of distribution, with people have contacted us directly because there's so many important topics in this film related to mental health, inequities of school resources, and racial. A lot of people experienced a lot of racism, and obviously through George Floyd, that was a big moment in time. So this film is a time capsule of what went on, and we think there's a great future for this. So that's where that is right now. So what my goals are, continuing to do this, is I want to increase impact screenings. We've been doing screenings. We did a screening at UMKC last week, but we want to increase impact screenings and educational screenings throughout the country, because it's a good opportunity not only to show the film, but to have interactivity with the people involved in the film and to educate people. So that's what we really enjoy about it, and our arm of distribution is going to help do that. But also, a lot of those impact screenings are through word of the mouth, and we'd certainly like to do more in Kansas City. I want to make more documentaries in Kansas City. There's a lot of good stories to tell. As you can see, my stories are kind of around social justice. I think it's an important thing for communities, and I think it's great to show Kansas City has a lot of stories and is supporting filmmakers that are recognized throughout the country and the world. Next steps for whatever project I do next, we're talking about doing a project, is just to get it up to the top tier festivals, to get that premium distribution. When I say top tiers, I'm talking about Sundance, South by Southwest, TIFF, Tribeca, the ones, and we're almost there, and I think that if I keep making films, I think that's the next step. And then premium distribution, obviously you want HBO. It's good to get it on the streaming things. You want HBO, you want a major cable provider, but someone really that's in that premium content space. Challenges, it's always good to expand the network, to talk to people like you, to find out more about if there's any other foundations that are supporting projects like mine, or just in general, people that might want to help with projects like this. In order to keep doing these films, you've got to increase funding. Again, I think with the model I have set up, it's a great way to get things going, and it's a great way to get us to the next level, to get to that distribution and to get to that outreach. And creating awareness. There's a lot of issues that are, that we have in our community, obviously with gun violence and obviously with mental health and some things. And I really, the passion of my projects is to create awareness about the issues we're having in our community. And I want to continue to do that, and I want to continue to tell stories about subject matters like that. Again, we would love more support, or I would love more support from foundations and art organizations, donors, and educational organizations for impact screenings, and to continue to use this process I have from story through production with the IDA through distribution. So, and I want to tell important local stories. So that's kind of where I'm at with this portion. Tonight, just so happens that there's a screening of Class of COVID-19. It's at the Johnson County Library. American Public Square, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the organization, but they're a great platform to have kind of roundtable town hall discussions about important issues, not only in our community, but around the country. It's very timely. So they're having a screening tonight, Johnson County Library. You're all invited to go, and it's free, and they have popcorn and soda for free. So, I mean, it's free and popcorn and soda, come on. And if you want to contact me for more information, I'd love to hear for you. There's my personal information, and that's all I have. And so we'll do some QA. Thanks.
Well, terrific. Well, let's give John a great big hand. He's going to stay up here. And what I'm going to do is, while John's up here answering questions, I'm going to run around with a microphone. We know the vocals in here is really good, but we want to make sure we get your questions and then John's answers online, because we definitely will make a plea for our online audience to help him in growing his film audience as well as his funding, et cetera, so forth. All right, so do we have anyone who would like to kick us off? Yeah.
Hi, John. You're amazing. I have a genuine question. How do you get into those upper tier film festivals?
Great question. I think there's several different ways. I think building credibility and having kind of a body of work to show that you've done some things. Sometimes it's who you know, and sometimes if the work is that good, it'll get out there. But I think again, it's I think the more films you do, the more experience you have, and they'll kind of look and say, well, this is legitimate. But it's a big challenge. I mean, when I was in Portland for the Portland Film Fest a couple months ago, we were having that same conversations because Portland is really like the top of a top tier 2 festival. It's not quite in tier 1, but all the films at Portland, it's some frame will have distribution. And we all talk, it's like, how do we get to that next level? Do we get a little frustrated with that because again, a lot of it is, there's kind of, people that haven't been involved with the top tier ones for 20 years that know people that can help get in.
I'm just thinking, your work seems so related to the Democratic Party right now, what they're trying to do with gun control and violence. And are you working the political scene at all, or?
Not currently. I mean, with which project? With Uncommon?
Well, I was thinking the gun violence.
Yeah. No, I'd like to. I think you're right. Again, it's challenging to get. There's only so much as an independent filmmaker I can do to reach out to these things, and even if you do have a sales agent, they're gonna help, but it's unless you're making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, you're not really the priority.
Right.
So, and again, as far as reaching out for impact screenings and education purposes, that's helped. That if people say, hey, I know this organization from the Democratic Party that's looking to create awareness, hey, I got a film we could show at their conference, I'd be happy to license it to them. So
the Uptown Theater owner, he's big in the Democratic Party. That's how Barack Obama, when he came into Kansas City, spoke at the Uptown Theater. And of course, he's the lover of the arts, more music so than anything else, but definitely respects the arts as a whole. So he's someone to reach out to. I believe I have an email address on him.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned earlier funding, Francis Family Foundation, which is a local funder, has done films. PBS. I do know some tech companies that are in education, and I could see if they're interested in, when they communicate, email blast their clients, this could be a FYI outside of, something they may be interested in.
Yeah, again, I'm interested in all parties. It's really just kind of getting it out there, and people, once it gets out there, it's always like one person knows someone else, which leads to another screening, which leads to another distribution partner, which leads to whatever. It's so word of mouth is very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, good idea. All right, other questions? Yeah. But well, can you go back to one of your goals, needs, or challenges? And so, and to another one I mentioned, there's a great film, there's another filmmaker in Kansas City. I attended his Artist Inc. talk on Kickstarter and how he launched his film on Kickstarter, so I'll give you his contact information. Okay. But yeah,
if you want to, I'm happy to answer questions about the films and how they were made and the obstacles or the characters. One story I like to tell about Uncommon Allies, which is kind of an inspirational type thing, is I was actually introduced to Rosalind through my mother, who was trying to get involved with Mothers in Charge to help them become a 501c3. So I did a pro bono free project for Mothers in Charge, promotional video. My brother and I did that to create awareness for Rosalind and her organization. And the video went kind of viral within the police and crime community. It was called the cupcake video, we called it, because it was all centered around a cupcake and her dedicating the, every year she goes to her son's apartment and makes a cupcake, blows out the candle. So that film kind of put me on the map so much with the police department in a good way that I was someone that was trying to tell the story genuinely, and I didn't have any ulterior motives to call out people for gun violence or the political side of it. It was very observational. It was an objective point of view of what I was trying to do with the police. So what that did is, again, it was at the time when I told you I was working with the Oscar award-winning filmmaker, and I told him the story. You know, we were in a car together for 2 or 3 days, and I told him the story, and he really was like, that's a great story. You need to get that film made. So having the confidence and knowing all the aspects of what I needed to do, you know, I had approached Rosalind and said, I want to be the director for this feature film. And she had 3 or 4 other film producer directors that had approached her. So what they were doing is the police department was kind of interviewing who's the best person for that. So I sat down and was interrogated in a roundabout way, so to speak. You know, I'd never been in that position before. It's very unassuming. They're all very friendly and smiling. Great guys, actually. But I kind of told them what my motives are. This is the story I see. This is what I want to tell. This is who I am. And I don't, you know, it's like I'm not going after anything. I'm not here to like expose what the police is doing wrong. I just want to show this, you know, incredible story. And they left the room, and Rosalind came back in, and she said, they say you're the guy, so you're the guy. So from that process, I got an arrangement with the Kansas City Police Department called an MOU, which is a Memorandum of Understanding, meaning that I have access to film with the police on locations to go to crime scenes. It's a legal arrangement. But in order to get that, I had to be officially vetted through the police department in addition to the FBI. So that was an interesting process. But now that that's been set up, I still have an MOU with the police. I can still work with them. And I've established a great relationship with them. And I've actually become really great friends with a lot of the officers, especially one in the film. So after the film had some success in screenings, the officer that's in the poster in there and Rosalind, the 3 of us were kind of a crew that went to film festivals together, and we go to impact screenings together. And we just love that story. It's been a while. You know, COVID kind of put things on hold a little bit because we were really getting momentum just around 2019. And then COVID kind of happened. But now I think things are getting back into it. We hope there's more screenings. So that's kind of the impetus of how Uncommon Allies got started and went on.
Now, WAG is the distribution?
Well, just for Uncommon Allies. So,
yeah. But
yeah.
You have the connection there to where you could propose this film, right?
I have a different model that I'm using for Classic COVID-19. Okay. So the way that the distribution is working today is everything's streaming now, and there's tons and tons of films, and the sales agent market of people like that is in a really strange place. And so right now there's aggregators that you can work with that essentially eliminate the middleman. So there's that, and the education distribution side of it, who we're talking to is really, really great, and they're going to help us. And again, you know, with my last film, Classic COVID-19, I partnered with a woman from UMKC. She's a professor there, so she was the producer for it. And from the beginning, we really believed that that film, you know, was just going to be used for education purposes. That was kind of the goal. Let's get this in the classroom. These are important stories. This is a time capsule. This is what kids are going to need to know in the future. And then when we found these characters that were so incredible, we were like, well, this actually has entertainment value. We can see this film being on Amazon, which it will, on, you know, all these platforms, which we're going to get it out to. But once again, these education distribution arms, they can get you out to all these documentary app-related sites. And the most important thing is they're going to set up screenings for us, and they're going to get this as people can purchase this DVD for the library and universities across the world and in high schools. So it can be sitting there as a time capsule for people to learn.
Good. All right. Can you go to your challenges slide? And then, so in the making of the film, are there any issues, you know, in working with people who aren't actors or such?
I tell people the easiest part is making the movie, and that's the fun part. Getting us started making it. The business side of it is the most challenging. And I think any documentary filmmaker will tell you that. But as far as working with, I don't necessarily work with actors, but the subjects in my films, I really like to create relationships with them where they can be comfortable and trust me with anything. That this is a relationship not just from the film. These are people that I'll continue to talk to and follow up with. One of the women in the film is coming in from K-State tonight that was in class of COVID-19. She's traveling from K-State to be on the panel tonight. And like I said, with Rosalind, I had to create enormous trust for someone who, she comes from a different world from where I come from. She comes from the inner city. She lost her son to violence. She's around gun violence all the time. And for her to trust someone like me, comes from a completely different background in a completely different part of town, it's something that's it's difficult to do, but when you're genuine and you can build those relationships, you can tell the great stories. And that's something that I feel is a strength that I have with the documentary filmmaker, is building trust for people to open up and tell their stories to me.
Yeah, and we have a question over here.
Hi, John. Speaking of challenges, on the COVID, class of COVID, you were down on the plaza. I know were you and your brother Dave running around with a camera?
No.
How did you get that footage? How did you get that video?
Well, that actually wasn't the plaza. there was footage in there. You mean the Kansas City related stuff? That was
wherever it was.
Okay.
I know there was a lot of demonstration down there at the fountain.
At
the Nichols Fountain.
No, so the
and
footage in the
Memorial.
film might be stock footage from Minneapolis.
Oh.
Which a lot of documentary filmmakers are using platforms because you can't be out there. It's hard to be everywhere in the country, so that's from New York and Minneapolis, and the cell phone footage was from a park out in Johnson County where the subjects were out. So in the film, a lot of the subjects we had them kind of do diary profiles of themselves during lockdown and COVID because we didn't want to be intrusive going into their homes, making them feel comfortable. So a lot of the stuff they did on their personal cell phones. So, but none was done in this area. I don't think that's in the film. Okay. Yeah, but good question.
I was just wondering what some of the liability was, and to get a release form and a waiver from some of these people that are going to be on camera. They want to protect their privacy.
Yeah.
They're private people, and
right.
So.
But if you're in a public place and people are protesting, I think that
true.
Yeah. Then
However,
it's
it's the purpose of what you do with it, though.
Yeah. Right. But they're not talking. And so for like Uncommon Allies, I'm covered with an MOU because I was with the police in the community. So that's a whole different thing. With Classic COVID, again, the stuff with people protesting was purchased by, we would use a stock company. So it's, we have the rights, they have the rights, and that's why people film and put their footage on stock companies, because they want people to buy it and use it for films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, I was at the film festival, Ward Parkway, I think it was
for
Rosalind's the crime.
Uncommon Allies. The Uncommon Allies one.
Yeah, I mean it was fantastic. It brought tears to my eyes. Coming from a TV news background, seeing a lot of violence and a lot of these crime scenes, it's pretty heavy.
She's got an incredible story. Yeah.
It just was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it.
So one thing that was happening with her, which could potentially still happen, is right before COVID, we were in development for a television show, a network television show with Rosalind. I don't know if that's going to happen. Priorities changed. We're still on the board, but it's a big, big TV network. So what that documentary film did for me is it got me a development deal with a production company in Los Angeles. For 2 years, we were working on how do we get her character to have this major television station create kind of an Uncommon Allies environment, which is challenging because TV networks and things in true crime have a certain angle that they want to follow. And when you have the integrity of your police department in a woman's story like that, there's a very fine line of where you go with that. I don't care how much money's involved. You cannot fabricate or embellish in a subject matter that really could affect. And that's been a big challenge because we just won't do it. And it's coming to that with a lot of people because they want to take a subject like her and they want to put it into their mold of advertising dollars and money, and you can't tempt. It's just you would be selling out big time, and it wouldn't be good for the community or the police department.
Well, if you ever need a place to shoot interviews, you know where to come.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, you have a great studio.
And I'll work within your budget. I know you're. And this Terrence O'Malley, he did a feature film on Nellie Don. Okay. Speaking of Kansas City documentaries, Kansas City subject matter, he happens to be the great nephew of Nellie Donnelly.
Oh, wow.
So we worked on this feature film, which was a musical. This last year, it's in post production now.
Oh, cool.
So there's a lot of Kansas City subjects. What would you? My question is, what would you do your next documentary on Kansas City?
Well, the woman that I worked with on Classic COVID-19, we have early talks about a model we're trying to use and what we want to do. We want to do it in Kansas City. It's a subject matter that could be done anywhere, but it's an experiment, kind of a social experiment that we want to do here. I mean, obviously for budgetary reasons, it's a lot easier to stay in your hometown than travel. But again, I want to hopefully, through getting out and talking to people like you, get more support to tell this story. And because we know we can do it. I know the model. We already know how we're going to film it. It's just getting that first hump, to get it started. And but it's another timely story. And it's very impactful. And I think it's, we're in kind of a phase right now after COVID with a lot of kids that are experiencing a lot of trauma from mental health and a lot of screen time issues and a lot of things about, deconstructing what's out there. And it's in a really important time with TikTok and things like that where people are just addicted to it. And we kind of want to, I want to show something to the side of just like, what can people accomplish when they put their phones down when they're kids? Because I was the last class in college around the time period to not have cell phones. So we learned communication skills through that period that I don't think a lot of kids these days have the best personal relations with things. Not to say that not all of them, but I just think as we get further and further down the road and people are more on their phones and doing things, especially with the younger generation, I think they're losing a lot. And I think there's a story that we're thinking about telling of like, hey, let's put your phone down and let's do something productive. There's more to it. That's all I'm telling you now.
Cool. Well, keep up the good work and let me know if I can help.
Yeah, you've always offered, and I always appreciate it. Thank you. Over COVID, I wasn't going anywhere, filming anywhere.
Yeah. Well, terrific. Hold on. We have a question online, and then we'll get to you.
Yeah, we have a question from Jan Jensen Artists. And they ask, can students invite you to show your documentaries at their schools? Not sure. That's
absolutely. Have them contact me directly. We do have to charge a license fee, but I'm happy to, again, love to get into every school in Kansas City if I could, either one. So yes, have them contact me here. Or, if whatever film it is, you can go to each one's website, either uncommonallies.com or classiccovidmovie.com, and you can submit forms for that. So thank you.
Yeah, Jan reps quite a few local artists, visual artists in Kansas City, so she's a good contact. We have a question over here.
So I actually don't know a lot about the filmmaking industry, and I was curious what a film like Uncommon Allies and Class of COVID-19, like what that looks like budget-wise, and like how big of a crew do you have to make these films?
Great question. Like I said, when I worked at Yahoo News, I was able to do every aspect of the production. So having the ability to shoot, direct, produce, and edit, meaning I can jump in a lot of times, which reduces the budget. But as far as pricing goes, to get a good feature documentary, I think minimum you're starting at $75,000. I think in between $75,000 to $250,000, depending on what you're going to accomplish, is kind of the low end for feature documentary films.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So we have artists that we advise visual artists who want to license their work to attend conventions and make connections. So are you attending these top tier film festivals and making connections, or is there someone who can do, who has been a part of them and can do introductions?
I think that would help. Going to these festivals is, quite frankly, it's super expensive. Like to go to these top tiers with travel, hotel, passes, it's just not in the budget. I mean, that it'll cost you a couple grand right there just to do that. But I think now, get the film festival process. Like when I went to these festivals this fall in Minneapolis and in Portland, I made such great contacts who everybody talks. And so not only do they introduce you to distribution partners and people doing screenings, like in Minneapolis, we got offered to do screenings for Uncommon Allies for gun violence purposes. But once you kind of network within certain circles, they know what distribution people are doing what, who to trust, who not to trust. So the more people, again, and who you know factor that you can trust to make the introductions, that's just the way film works. It's just about networking. So
Yeah.
it's important to do that.
Okay, good. And then 2, do you do any advertising before you go to these film festivals on Facebook or such?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for the most part, it's hard to get people into your screenings at film festivals, but a lot of it is going to festivals and hustling other filmmakers to come, and then they hustle people to come. Documentaries, unless you're a documentary film festival, sometimes aren't the prime lineup. So again, in Minneapolis, which is a fantastic film festival, they had some major films with big time actors that you're competing with to get audiences. It's like, do you want to see a film about COVID, or do you want to go see a super famous actor, and that type of thing? And festivals know that because they have to generate money too, but they like to have good documentaries with good subjects in them as well.
Okay, good. All right, other questions? Let's go back to, I think, your needs. So has anybody seen, definitely he's been told about some of the foundations and sources. Has anybody seen artists or nonprofits such do good fundraising, and would suggest, like, too, I know for nonprofits, sometimes you have someone with a really nice home, and they have a dinner for you and invite their circle of friends, and some of these dinners can raise $7,000 with just 20 people.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, philanthropic donors are fantastic. I sat in on a panel with a producer in Portland who actually is from Kansas City, or from Manhattan, Kansas. He's in Hollywood now. He's done 150 to 200 films, feature films, and he does them for a lower budget. And he has a book that talks about the 5 ways to get independent film fans. And he's a true independent filmmaker, not Hollywood. And he's very renowned, but his favorite way is philanthropic donors. So, and he has this whole way of doing. I'm not going to give it away because it's in his book, which you're not supposed to talk about, which we got for free. But I read his book on the plane ride back, and it's really just, if you have if you're trying to help your community and you have a good story to tell, and it makes your city look good, and it makes you look good around the country, and you're helping people, I think that's a great way for, again, it's like, how do you get that introduction? How do we get to those people to talk about? And, it's good for them. It's good for tax purposes, but it also makes you feel better. The whole thing with Uncommon Allies and Mothers in Charge and working with Rosalind, that just made me feel good. And that was a passion project. Like, I put hundreds of hours of unnecessary time because I wanted that done. It wasn't about making money. It was about, this is an important story. This is my first feature film, and it's really gotten out there, and I didn't think I'd be in the position today after, or in the early stages of doing that film, but once I went through it, and now with classic COVID-19, I just feel confident that I can keep doing this, and even on a bigger level too.
Now, did you have those same funders, the Kaufman and such, support COVID-19 as well as?
So yes, both projects.
Okay.
So the first one, they helped more on an impact campaign, which helped me get it to do screenings, so we could set up screenings. And I think the goal was we did 10 screenings in Kansas City through their impact campaign at high schools and universities.
Okay.
And that was kind of them helping us set us up kind of in that business side of it. And then we ended up doing some around the country. There was some up in Iowa, and then the thing in Baton Rouge. But that was through word of mouth. Like, the mayor of Baton Rouge called me randomly, or the mayor's assistant, and wanted to do that. And I said, well, what a great idea. Like, why isn't Chicago or St. Louis or Philadelphia having these community screenings with Rosalind and the police to talk about a message that, not all police are good, but there are some good things that the local police in Kansas City is doing. It's a message that can really help out a lot of other cities.
I would ask for that Baton Rouge mayor or it's someone within the city a couple referrals to other cities and
Yeah,
send
for sure.
and send a press package to them.
Well, and I think that locally, I think our mayor here could probably, help put something together like that too, if they're doing it in other cities. So I'm reaching out to you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, there you go. All right, and other ideas? When you do these screens like tonight, there won't be any funding around it, will there?
No, tonight. So the way that tonight's an impact screening.
Yeah.
So going back to
Okay.
any type of impact screening, they license the film for me. So they pay a fee, the fee. And at some of these events, when we do impact screenings, we also get a speaking engagement fee that we charge. For this, we're not, because I know the American Public Square people, and they're awesome, and they do great things. So tonight's an example of what an impact screening can do, where they're not charging admissions. We made a little bit of, a licensing fee off of it, and we're in our community, we're raising awareness. So.
And maybe someone from the audience can help me out. What is the church by the Kemper Museum that does Sunday morning talks, and they are on KCUR on Thursdays?
All Souls Unitarian Church.
Have you presented at All Souls?
No, there's it's overwhelming how many people you have to reach out to, and it's better to be introducing ideas from it, because I got a lot of other work going around. It's hard to hustle everything all the time.
Well, and then too, I mean, I would use the people who are in these films, like the police officer or the students and such, to see if they're willing to do a talk about the film as well.
Yeah.
Because I think also, they're broadcast on KCUR, and actually a lot of the congregates are from UMKC, UMKC professors and such. But they would, and then too, just to get PBS, again, they'll support funding for films, local films, but they also will highlight them, and so they're and they'll highlight them in their art segments.
Yeah, they helped sponsor an event for Uncommon Allies, a fundraising event I did initially.
Yeah, but
and with Arts KC, so they partnered with Arts KC, and but with the current film, when you're on the festival circuit and stuff, you can't do anything broadcast wise until you're done doing the festival circuit. But I have talked to people over at PBS about for the new film and whatnot. But yeah, again, it's good to have support from people from over there.
All right.
You said you did talk to Channel 19, PBS?
PBS, yeah.
The program director?
Mike
Murphy? Okay.
Yeah.
He's the guy.
No, I know. A good guy too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then what else? Any other questions?
I do. Yeah. Real quickly, for a screening, John, especially with Rosalind. I can't. What's
Rosalind Temple. Mm-hmm. Rosalind Temple.
Yeah, the crime one. The community center, like the Mohart Community Center at Linwood and Paseo.
That's where her office is in the Mohart. Yeah, that's where we did.
It's a great place for people to congregate. A huge room. It's probably free.
Yeah. Well, we did a screening there for Uncommon Allies with American Public Square about 4 years ago. It's a great theater. You can't have fundraisers in the Mohart Theater.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
you can do screenings
city property.
there.
Mm-hmm. But even down here, the West Side Community Center.
Mm-hmm.
There's crime on the West Side too.
Yeah.
And as well as some the Southeast Community Center, that
Absolutely.
beautiful new one by Swope Park.
If anybody wants to help facilitate, events like this, reach out to me. I don't have the bandwidth. Yeah, I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. I have other stuff going on, but it's out there. So anybody wants to help.
Yeah, actually, we've had volunteers come through these events to help our artists. So anywhere from project management to admin to,
yeah. And again, with both films, the way I have it set up is it's Uncommon Allies. I have a non-exclusive education right, meaning I can do whatever I want with it. and that's important to set up rather than being acquired where they own all rights. So going into these, having a non-exclusive education right, I can do any type of screening. I can do whatever I want with Uncommon Allies. Class of COVID might be a little different, but I can do impact screenings, and I can do these things we're talking about. But that's, when I got into it for education purposes to do what I'm doing. And I think that's important because I think a lot of films, when they sell their rights out to someone, they take all their rights. And that means you can't do a lot with it after the film's done. That could be more lucrative. I don't think that model is as lucrative anymore. I think the education space for documentary is growing, and there's a big market in it. And there's some really innovative companies doing things, and there's some really great platforms, Canopy, DocuSeek, that are like a Canopy, for instance, is becoming almost like a Netflix where there's a balance between Hollywood films, education films, films like Moonlight and other things are out there. So our goal is to get out on those things.
So have you ever worked with a grant writer, or do you work with a grant writer?
I don't. For the last project, the producer I worked with, Donna M. Davis from UMKC, she did the grant writing for it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I would, if she's interested, or she can get suggestions, or, because there's a lot of grant writers that I've worked with, they're like, you have to get matching grants. So, and especially the Kauffman Foundation is a recognizable name to get matching grants. And there's data apps you can go to and just put in, a couple keywords, and you can find out what the matching grants are.
I love it. Yeah.
So
that's not my forte, is grant writing.
Yeah,
but that's definitely something
I would go to her, or and maybe and ask her if she has the time, or is there someone you can work with that can get matching grants.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Especially with that Kauffman one.
Yeah, and the main thing is really just getting it off the ground to get that initial grant, to get things going, because once you get the project off the ground or a grant, you start filming, then you can come up with that trailer, and then you can get more people interested in being. So there's not one specific way to do things exactly. You have to be flexible and navigate through the waters, because sometimes it's easy and you get a huge grant up front and that's all you have to worry about, but a lot of times it's incremental stuff that keeps you going.
Okay.
Do you apply for the film festivals yourself, or?
Yeah, I kind of know. It's pretty easy now. There's a site called Film Freeway, and you just basically create your profile and you just hit submit and pay, submit and pay, submit and pay.
Copy and paste. And
That's another cost. Is film festivals are extremely expensive. They charge anywhere from $35 to $85 per application. So that's another part of your budget that you need. That's a few $1,000s right there. But the way film festivals work is you can apply to no matter what your film is, they usually accept you on a percentage rate of, I would say 4 to 8% of films get into festivals. And it's not because of how good it is, it's because of who people know in the festival, what audience wants to see what film. Local films are going to get supported over other ones. But the percentage rate, if you get into 7 to 10% of festivals, that's fantastic. So I think we're at like 5 or 6% with the other film. So it's good. It's just that, it's not like you put your film into a festival and you just hope to get in. There's a lot of other factors that go into. There's people that have had alum of those festivals that have been submitting for 20 years, or, there's Oscar qualifying people that have their festivals in there. So you can't take it personally. You win an award at a few festivals, and that's recognition, and that's important.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we have time for one more question. Yeah, we have a question over here.
Oh, sorry. You have an interest, of course, personally in doing things here in Kansas City. But if you didn't have that connection here to Kansas City anyway, is there any place else in this country that you look at as being on the edge of doing documentary films? And
I think that each community has their own documentary film scene, for sure. I think it's helpful because I was born and raised here. My family's here. My parents are involved with organizations in the community. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people from just growing up and going to high school here. I think you need to invest time into your community. It would be hard for me to say, like, pick up and go to Portland and be like, I want to be in the documentary film scene, because, and that's another thing you learn when you go to like a good festival like Portland is you might be in the top tier of your city doing what you're doing, but every city around the country has people like you doing the same thing that you're doing. And it's a very humbling thing because there's a lot of good work out there. Right. But every community really has something set up. And obviously the cities like LA and New York and Chicago and Atlanta, Austin, they have bigger scenes and people are more aware of that nationally and whatnot. But there's a lot more filmmakers in Kansas City now, and there's a lot of talent here. And it would help for us to get more recognition, and support, knowing that this is what's going on here, because there are some really cool stuff, that is happening in the city. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking of these other places. You mentioned a few other cities, and I remember when Austin was just a little town, sleepy town in Texas, not so many years ago. But anything can be gleaned there. Anything you can learn there about how those communities have developed so well that is applicable to Kansas City.
I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, Austin has South by Southwest, which is one of the best film festivals in the world. Right. You have that, you're going to have a good. It also has people like Richard Linklater. He's a great director. Boyhood and all those other movies, and having someone at that caliber represent your city is going to help. I know that Kansas City is working right now. The Film Commission is doing a good job of trying to raise awareness of what we can do here. They have a thing going on with Promote Films in Kansas, and I know that they've been trying with the state of Missouri to get tax incentives for filmmakers. I think that affects people more, doing more narrative films that have actors and crews and whatnot. For what I'm doing is lean and mean. It doesn't cost a lot, I could do it here, and I could go film in other cities, the subjects, and travel around the country. But I think the cost in Kansas City is much, much lower, and it's much easier to do locations here because, this would be really hard to do in Los Angeles, because everywhere you go in LA, if you're filming, they're like, do you have rights to do that? Can you film here? And because everybody knows there's a lot of industry there, and they know exactly what's going on. Here, it's like you can set up and, do things legally, but it's a lot easier to navigate and get things done.
Well, great. Well, I'm going to thank you very much, John. Let's give him another applause.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you all people that are streaming.
Why don't you go to your last screen? And I want to thank you. Definitely take a look at this, both online and in person. Reach out to John. And let them know of any resources that you've thought of or during this or afterwards, and he's available.
And come to the screen tonight, and people on the live stream, in case you didn't see, Johnson County Library at 5:30 tonight.
Yeah. And is there any other parting words you'd like to leave people with?
No, just thanks for having me, and support your local film community.
Yeah, great. And so we will end with a few more slides. And tell you more about what we have coming next with GuildIt. All right, so next month here at the Weinberger, we have a well-known illustrator actually coming to present, and so I'm not. It's funny, I'm not seeing this on screen, so I don't know how to. But anyway, yeah. So Xavier Gaydon will be speaking on the 23rd, and he'll tell you about his art. He does illustration. He does both original work and then concepts you haven't seen before, as well as cartoon concepts. So, and he makes a good living off of selling those online, the cartoons, et cetera, and that introduces people to his original fine art pieces as well. So, so he'll talk more about what he does, and he's also travels out of state for his work, and then we disappeared again. So, and then the last slide, one other item on this slide is GuildIt is looking at building studios and workspaces, co-working, possibly gallery and event space meeting rooms for artists. And we've been looking in Midtown, but actually we've expanded our possibilities because we've had someone say, what about Columbus Park? There's a great building there. Red Bridge Shopping Center, we've been talking to them about being in that space where there is no art, really, no, as far as there's not galleries within a couple miles, there's definitely not studios within probably 10 miles. So, so we're looking at a couple spaces that art studios aren't right now, or nonprofit galleries aren't right now, and seeing what we can do in those communities, as well as we're still considering Midtown. So if you have any resources we should hear about, or any ideas about what we should consider besides galleries, because definitely City in Motion, another great 40-year-old institution of dance here in Kansas City, they're looking for space too. We would love to have enough space to accommodate both of us and solve both our solutions. So yeah, we're definitely open. There's some great arts organizations like us looking for space to do great things for more artists like John. So thank you. And please remember GuildIt and telling them about our event February, as well as donate. Appreciate it.